Hey, everybody. Derek Maines here with The Breakdown. Wanted to chat with you about something I've been thinking about the last 24 hours a good bit. And it's probably because I've been out working with clients in the last couple of weeks. And it reminds me so much of how important this technique is. As I said in the description, I think we've all been taught that respect is earned. But actually, I don't believe that's the case when it comes to business. I think respect is a result of you inspecting the work. What do I mean by that? Well, a friend of mine, Hayes, who works over at Blue Media, once told me that people only respect what you inspect. And it really just stuck with me that people only respect what you inspect. And I can tell you that one of the techniques I've used throughout my career, it's something I've taught in my workshops, is this Japanese concept called the Gemba walk. What a Gemba walk is it's essentially management by aimlessly wandering around. It says that managers need to be seen in the area where the work is being done in order for the outcome and output of work to be, of a good quality. So people respect what you inspect. This is a psychological principle as well. Think about what we do as human beings to control behavior of, let's say, kids. We tell them about Santa Claus. We tell them about the Easter Bunny. We tell them that somebody sees them when they're sleeping and knows when they're awake and knows all of their good and bad deeds. So they should come into line with this standard. And if they do, there's a reward at the end. People respect what you inspect. The belief in Santa Claus causes children to modify their behavior in the way that their parents would like because they want to come into compliance for the hope of the reward. This is the exact same thing with business. I'll give you an example that I had a few years back with a financial company that had a couple of floors of people. They had a call center, and I was with the CEO and I was explaining this concept to him. And I said, would you like to see this in action? And he said, well, sure. How would we do that? I said, come on with me. First and foremost, do you have cameras? He said, yeah, I got cameras all through the place. I said, great, let's take a walk. So we went from the executive floor and we went down to the floor where the work was being performed, the calls that were being made on a daily basis. And we just walked around. And as soon as we walked out onto the floor, you could notice a real change in the way that people were behaving because they were not used to management being on the floor. For the most part, that might have been the first or second time they'd seen an executive down on their floor. So we walked around for a moment or two and I said, just follow my lead. And we walked over to a filing cabinet and on it was a stack of papers. And I picked up these papers and I turned to him and I said, let's just stand here for a moment and let's look at these papers and let's observe them. And let's pretend like we're having a conversation. Let's just act here for a moment. He's like, I don't know what you're doing, but okay, whatever. So I said, oh, isn't this interesting? Blah, blah, blah. We're looking at the paper. We're pointing. We're doing all these things. We lay the paper down. We complete our walk. We go back to his office. And I said, pull up the cameras. He pulled up the cameras and I said, let's go and watch what happened when we walked onto the floor. Well, it was really obvious from the cameras that the second that we walked on the floor, behavior was modified significantly. They were screwing around before that, throwing a ball around. They were all, having conversations. People are standing, talking to others. As soon as we came on the floor, everybody snapped into action. They knew that the actions that they were performing were not in line with the standard, and therefore they modified their behavior. But the most interesting part was what happened with that stack of papers. The papers that we had looked at, we had no idea what we were even looking at. It didn't make any sense to us. So there wasn't any purpose in looking at these papers. As soon as we set those papers down and walked off the floor, immediately 3 managers came running over to that stack of papers, inspecting the stack of papers, looking at it, scratching their heads. What is it about these papers? What were they looking at? What does it mean? What does it mean? They were racking their brain trying to figure out what we had inspected. And just the act of inspection immediately took their respect. Didn't matter if they cared for the CEO at all. Didn't matter if they'd ever met him. Didn't matter if they even knew. But the fact that somebody looked at that stack of papers was enough for them to immediately place their attention upon it. And that's something that we have to understand as a lesson for each and every one of our businesses. If you want high quality, high output work, you have to have to go down to where the work is being performed. You've got to see it being performed. You have to inspect it. That doesn't mean that you have to, go and dig arm deep in everything, but just look around. I always coach managers to look in the garbage cans. Anybody that goes on a Gemba walk with me knows the first place that I look is garbage cans. I just start looking around in there and shaking them and seeing what's in there. Why do I do that? Well, because a lot of times theft occurs through garbage cans. A lot of times mistakes, covered up mistakes, literally get covered up and put into a garbage can. I've seen this happen time and time again. Garbage cans are, in a business, a garbage can is literally a pot of gold. Looking in there, you're going to find these things. Now, I'm not saying you want to make management decisions when you're out on these Gemba walks. I'm just saying you want to be present. My approach always is I tell every manager to walk the floor twice a day. I was working in a facility here in Phoenix that had about 12 people in management, 100 or so people on the floor. And we noticed that every time we walked out onto the floor, people were just shocked. They had never seen a manager out on the floor before. If each one of those 12 managers walked out there twice a day, it's 24 times a day, 3 times an hour, imagine what the productivity would improve because people would know that we cared and we paid attention. So that's what my idea for you today is get out there, spend a couple of minutes just taking a look at all of the things that are happening in your business.